this. And we spoke about two specific practices that we can do as spiritual exercises to help us to develop this concentration and do it in a systematic way. Let me share my screen. I have a slide here that summarizes it. So we talked about really needing to do two things. One is to essentially calm the mind and settle it down. And the other is to have a full distribution of our consciousness through our entire being, not just concentrated in the thinking mind. And the two practices we covered for that were the breath meditation, which is very helpful for the first part, calming the mind, stilling the mind down. And the other was the body scan attention or meditation, that we go cycling through the entire body to reconnect with the body and create some distance between us as the pure ruh, the attention, the consciousness, and our mind, because that is where we have become extremely attached. And so those two practices are what we discussed, and these are general trainings that we need to do to develop these skills. Okay, and really once you become grounded in this and actually live in this way, not just, oh, let's do it for salah, but actually shift the way you live. It's a kind of art of living, of being fully present in life, not just for salah. Then when it comes to the time to enter into salah or begin the procedure of preparing for salah, it happens very easily. It happens very smoothly. For the advanced practitioner of this, it becomes very smooth. And then it can be maintained very easily. You do your salah from that position of presence. Okay, so those are the things that we discussed last time. And this all creates a kind of inner silence also that is really a prerequisite for all spiritual activity. All spiritual experience really requires to create that inner silence. And these practices are very powerful in opening up that silent space within us, where we will then be able to welcome his presence to come and for us to experience it directly. So that's what we talked about. Now, the idea here is that we initially become aware of our own presence, okay? Because normally we're not even present ourselves. How can you possibly expect to experience his presence if you don't have your own awareness of your own presence and be fully present here? So that's why we're going to ground ourselves in our own hudur as a step one. And the other is that these exercises that we discussed will also make you much more sensitive to what is here, what is actually happening, what is actually present. You become much more in tune with more delicate, more subtle events that are happening, changes that are happening in the present moment. Okay, you develop a sensitivity to it. And only that way are we then able to, as it were, tune into his presence. Okay, now what we'll go on to now is really talking about and thinking about how to now go beyond your own presence and open up into Allah's presence. Okay, now I actually don't think this can be taught. It's something that you have to spend time developing yourself. It's a journey itself of personal experimentation and discovery to see how that happens and to see what works to bring that about. As I'm describing this to you, it is really just creating the right conditions. Think of them as just the prerequisite. It's impossible to experience his presence if you have not grounded yourself in your own presence and created a silent space for that meeting to happen, for his presence. If we do all of that, does it mean that it will naturally just happen? I believe it will. Okay, in my own experience, that's what has happened. The more deeply grounded I become in my own presence, I just find that it naturally opens up to an awareness that he is here as well. That part of it, I don't have any kind of scientific or technical way to describe it. It just naturally happens. And I believe that's the case for everyone if the conditions are right. So that's where my focus has been, is on helping to develop the conditions within you to allow that to happen. Now, if it requires more than that, or what else can we do to invite this presence to happen, to become aware of it, there are two things that I've personally found helpful to kind of contemplate or be aware of to invite that presence to come. So what are these? One is this beautiful ayah, وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ, is perfect for this step of the process. So once you have really cleansed your own consciousness and really developed this concentration, created that silent space, now you just bring this awareness of وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ into your mind and rest there. Just stay with that. Wait there silently, knowing this, fully confident in this. And I have found that to suddenly lead to that kind of realization that, yes, I feel it. I can feel that experience directly myself. So that's one thing. But everyone can do this themselves, is to explore what kind of tools or techniques or some particular dua or eye or something that resonates with you, that brings that to your attention. That can be helpful in this type of practice. The other is that this beautiful hadith, أعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. So this is describing these two levels of presence. Okay, أعبد الله كأنك تراه. So if you are there and you feel that presence directly, then proceed. Just continue that way. أعبد الله كأنك تراه. But if not, if you don't have that experience, then what do? You behave in such a way that is appropriate, knowing that he is seeing you. So you may not feel his presence, but we know that he is present and he is able to see exactly what's happening deepest within you. So فَإِن لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. So how will you behave knowing that he is seeing you? So in practice, this becomes a way to enhance that sense of presence by having that kind of humility and humbleness, knowing. It's as though you are aware that someone is watching you, and having that kind of respectful behavior, almost like a body language. And this itself can also help to open you up to feeling that presence come. So these are a couple of things, but as I said, each person can do this for themselves and see what is effective, what works, what is it that you find is helpful to you to then experience it. When the conditions are right, it should naturally start to flow. And these are things that you can do to assist it to happen. Now, the other thing that I would say about this is that it takes time to develop the relationship, okay? And a kind of a familiarity with that inner silence that is needed to experience that. And once you've spent the time and developed this relationship with Allah, then you find that it will happen more frequently and more naturally itself, and nothing else will be needed. I'm reminded of some beautiful Persian poetry about this when he says, هر که در خلوت سرای او شود ذره ذره آشنای او شود. هر که بویی یافت از خاک درش کی به رشوت بازگردد از درش. So anyone who has entered that special inner space of khalwa, this empty, silent space of just you and him, slowly you start to actually know him. Ashana, it says, to become familiar with him, to know him personally. So everyone who spends time there in that silent just being with him develops that kind of familiarity. And then he says that whoever even smells the fragrance of the dust at his door, that fragrance alone, there is nothing that can bribe you to pull you away from just wanting to be with that fragrance. As a beautiful way to describe that kind of intimacy that develops. And nothing comes close to developing that in just being with him, silently empty of all thoughts. Okay, so that's what will come with time. After having done this type of meditation to empty yourself, that's what will come. Now, the other thing I would say about it, though, as part of this kind of ongoing development of the inner space, the inner spiritual work that we're doing, is that it does require a certain type of determination and a commitment that you are something you have a longing for. It can't just be something nice on the side that you want. It has to be wholehearted. And so the other beautiful verse that I love is that he says, گر نداری شادی از وصل یار خیز باری ماتم هجران بدار گر نبینی جمال یار تو خیز منشین می طلب اسرار تو. He says that if you are not enjoying that happiness of feeling that wisal, that connection, then get up and be in a state of mourning, matam, of being mahjur, of having been neglected and separated. If you don't enjoy seeing his beauty, then get up and go after it. Go after these secrets. Don't just sit there accepting that this is the way things are. It requires that level of a sense of urgency that you cannot live like this anymore. Okay, so this is part of the attitude that's needed. So it's a silent waiting, but there's an active dimension to it as well, that you are unable to live again like this anymore. So those are some sort of pointers in terms of the state of the heart or attitude that we need to progress and develop this, deepen this hudur. Okay, so we started with our own, but now trying to open up into his hudur. This is the kind of ebb and flow that you have to go through to develop that relationship with him, to make that happen at another level. Okay, so that's something I wanted to point out to. The other is that there is potential that the reason why you don't feel that presence is due to obstacles. Okay, so some form of an obstacle is getting in the way of why you are not able to experience that hudur. And one of those obstacles can be a lack of purity. Okay, and that's what opens us to the next topic that we're going to move on to, and that is tahara. But this is now going way beyond physical tahara and the rules of that. In fiqh, we're talking about an inner purity that needs to be achieved as a prerequisite, again, for progressing further on this path. And so that lack of purity can be a reason why you don't see that experience of the opening up of hudur. Okay, so tahara. Tahara is a very deep subject and many levels to it. We'll start talking about that in this session, and probably will continue in the next session as well. And so purity from what are we talking about? In what way can you have impurities that become an obstacle? Well, if you see this slide here, I have a few things that I'll point to. In this path, the kind of level that we're trying to achieve is higher than the basics, and so what is demanded of us, it gets more and more intense. If you want to progress further and further, it requires a deeper and deeper level of commitment and dedication. And so when we say purity from impurities, what kind of impurities can we face? Well, one of them is the contamination from desires and attachments to objects. Okay, now when I say objects here, I have a very, very wide definition of objects. Okay, objects are not just physical objects that we see, that we are accustomed to in the physical dimension. Objects, just as we see physical ones, there are subtle objects in the mind and the heart in the form of thoughts, emotions, relationships. All of these are actually objects. Okay, thoughts are a type of an object. Feelings are a type of object. Okay, an object to you, the ruh, you, the consciousness, is the subject, the witness of these different types of object. Okay, and so it's a very wide definition. Everything falls under this. Anything that you can point to, whether it be physical or it be in your mind, in your heart, if you are aware of a thought or a feeling or some kind of a relationship, someone you love. All of these are objects because they are known to you. Okay. And attention towards these objects, desires for these objects, are a form of impurity. They are a form of ignorance that is not acceptable on this path to Allah. They are going to hold you back because they are essentially a distraction, and they essentially show that you have more than one purpose or more than one beloved. And that's not what doesn't work. We are moving towards oneness, and this is multiplicity. This is kathra, and this kathra is getting of this approach to wahda that we are going towards with Allah. And they are the reason for the sense of separation, because you start to see yourself as an object, and a finite object at that. And that's the basis of the separation that we spoke about before. So it's this seeing of objects and desire for objects that is a form of impurity that we need to cleanse ourselves from in order for that presence to be open to us. Now, why do we need to do that? Well, because if you are looking to enter into that holy presence of the beloved, it requires a type of etiquette, adab, that is appropriate for that type of relationship to develop. So it requires a type of sincerity, a different level of sincerity and commitment and dedication and devotion. It has to be wholehearted, entire being devoted to that. And so being busy with the worldly objects, including our thoughts, including desires, this is not devotion. And that's what's not acceptable. So if you have those things within you, within your mind, within your heart, then don't be surprised that the presence doesn't come. So this is a lifelong journey to disassociate ourselves from all of these different types of objects. And that's what the tahara is all about. Okay, that's what it's based on. And there are different levels to this. Okay, what we do in the spiritual path, in Irfan, is that we usually talk in 3 different levels. Okay, 3 different levels for a lot of different things. When we talk about Allah Himself, when we talk about ourselves, when we talk about many different things, we talk about 3 different levels. And it helps to just create a kind of structure that is might be and to progress from one level to the next. Okay, usually we start by talking about actions, so af'al, and the next level above that is sifat. Okay, and the highest level, or the deepest level you could say, is the essence. Okay, that. So af'al, sifat, and that. Okay. And as I said, we talk about Allah in terms of those things. We talk about af'al Allah, sifat Allah, that Allah, and even ourselves. Even ourselves, we perform actions, right? We have our own af'al. We have certain attributes, right? Different types of qualities in ourselves. And we have an essence. And that essence has a certain nature. Okay, tabi'ah. And so we can talk about those things. Now, when it comes to tahara, here's an example of using this structure structure to talk about a particular topic, like tahara. So when we talk about different levels of purity, we start with actions. Okay, so it's quite obvious. We're talking about purifying yourself from bad actions, actions that are not helpful, that are harmful to others. So that's a level of tahara that we need to have. The next level up is tahara of attributes, right? Eliminating bad attributes of self. So this is obviously selfishness, anger, arrogance, all of these negative attributes. That's another level of tahara that's required. And then at the deepest level is you in your own essence becoming pure from this noise of attention to the other. Okay? توجه إلى الغير. That's how general it is. التوجه إلى الغير is a form of impurity in your deepest essence. That needs to be eliminated and instead replaced with love and surrender and attention and concentration and true knowledge. Okay, so these are the different levels of tahara that are usually referenced, and in our own day-to-day practice, that's what we can work on. Okay, it requires work to change those actions, those attributes, and then that essential nature of how you are living moment to moment within yourself, and then how you interact with others. Okay, now when it comes to salah, the tahara is symbolically done, okay, using water, obviously. So we do this in the wudu. And so the question of why water, and there's some beautiful symbolism around water and why we use it as a means of purification. Okay, so as we know, water is the source of life, and here it's not just H2O source of life, but source of the true life, the spiritual life, that enlightenment, that knowledge of what we truly are and how we are connected to Allah. That's what the water symbolizes. The other is that everything in existence is essentially a manifestation of one or more of Allah's names and attributes. Okay, everything in life, everything in the world is a manifestation of His being, His attributes, His actions. And water, ma, is the embodiment, it is the symbol, manifestation of His rahmah. Okay, it is pure rahmah that is being materialized in the form of water. Okay, so that rahmah is what we need to purify ourselves internally, and so that's why we use water in this way. The other beautiful thing that I find when reading about this is that water itself is formless. Okay, it is formless. It has no color. It has no smell. It has no shape. It has no taste. And so if we are seeking to purify our consciousness from this, all of the impressions, all of the forms that have become imprinted in us, in our minds, in our bodies, through our interaction with the world, what we're trying to do is to eliminate those forms, right? And become pure and empty so that His form can come. And so it is use water, which is formless, colorless, has no attributes itself, to actually eliminate all of those forms. And so that's a beautiful way to think about the water, is that it is actually something that is formless, and it's cleansing us of all forms, because he is formless. If you have any forms in your mind, in your heart, right? Anything that has a form, all objects, all thoughts, all feelings have some kind of a form, and all of those are obstacles. They are obstructing you from seeing his formlessness. So you are using water to wash away all of the impressions, all of the forms that are imprinted in us through our interaction with the world. Okay, so this hadith is a beautiful way to end this session, maybe, where he says, وَطَهِّرْ قَلْبَكَ بِالتَّقْوَى وَالْيَقِينِ عند طهارة جوارحك بالماء. Okay, so that's the ultimate use of water, is to achieve this inner طهارة القلب. And you're doing it through taqwa, through yaqeen, and through all of the things that we discussed up to here. So I think I'll stop here for today's session. There's more to go into as we go through step by step about wudu. This was more general than wudu. This is more talking about tahara conceptually, when we're thinking about the spiritual tahara in general terms. But then next time we'll talk about the specific tahara that we go through for salah itself, which is the wudu, obviously. So we'll do that next time. Okay, so I'll maybe stop there.